Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tiana Brown, and welcome to today's webinar, ARPA Childcare Stabilization Grants. Before we get started, I would like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. When you joined today's webinar, you elected to join either by phone or computer. If for any reason you would like to change your selection, you can do so by following the directives in the automated email from Zoom, which contains instructions for how to join by phone or computer. This webinar is being recorded. All participants are placed on mute for quality assurance. You will have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by selecting Q&A on your control panel, located at the bottom of your screen. You may send in your questions at any time, and we will collect these and address them during the Q&A sessions throughout and at the end of today's presentation. I would now like to turn it over to Kathy Glazer, VECF President.
Thank you, Tiana, and good afternoon, everybody. It is great on a sunny Monday afternoon to have a chance to get together and talk some more about the stabilization grants for childcare providers through the American Rescue Plan Act. And really pleased to have Jenna Conway and Rebecca Ulrich from the Virginia Department of Education with us today to once again outline information about this important opportunity for childcare providers in Virginia. And as Tiana mentioned, please feel free to listen carefully to the information that Jenna and Becca will be providing. And then if you have remaining questions, feel free to add those to the Q&A tablet at the bottom of your screen. And with that, we'll look forward to hearing from Jenna. Take it away.
Excellent. Thank you, Tiana. Thank you, Kathy. I'm Jenna Conway. I'm our Deputy Superintendent of Early Childhood Care and Education here at the Virginia Department of Education. And I am so pleased to have everyone join us this afternoon. Huge thanks to the Early Childhood Foundation for sponsoring this webinar and to the nearly 300 participants who've already logged on. These are exciting times, and we are pleased to be able to update you on the Stabilization Grant Program, as well as talk today about how to help ensure you have a successful application. I'm joined by my colleague, Rebecca Ulrich, and we will jump right in. I'll start today with an update. We'll go through the overview and the criteria one more time, as well as our formula, and then I'll flip it to Becca, who will actually take you through screenshots with our real focus on how to support you to submit a complete application. We'll then wrap with who to contact and how to contact us when you need help. We recognize this is a lot of information. Today will be recorded, as just noted, and we can share these slides. And please don't hesitate to include any Q&A through using that Q&A function. And we'll each try to pause at the end of each major section to be able to take your questions. Next slide, please. With that, let's get into an update from week one. So as many of you know, we were very excited to launch this Child Care Stabilization Grant Program a week ago, November 1st. We know and we have heard loud and clear from many of you as some of the challenges you are facing. I know I've had at least one or two providers express to me this is the hardest time of the pandemic, whether it's the fatigue, the exhaustion, the challenges around hiring and retaining staff. And so we are so pleased to be able to get this launched last week. And we have already received more than 2,500 applications in just under a week. This is an update as of yesterday, Sunday. That represents more than 40% of those who may be eligible. So just huge thank you to you and your colleagues. Please continue to spread the word. This is not first come, first serve. We want to serve everybody who's eligible. And so we ask for your help in continuing to get the word out there. We have already approved 700 applications for payment, which represents about $49 million in investment that should be coming to you shortly. And of the remaining applications, they're under review now with our new grants team. It's working around the clock, worked through the holidays last week and worked through this week's state holidays as well. We're checking those records to make sure that the tax identification number is good to go, and then sending it over to VECF for payment. We know we're getting questions. We have added additional webinars to the schedule, including today and next Monday, to make sure that we can be responsive to you. In addition, we'll talk at the end today about emailing us if you've got particular questions and you're not able to resolve them through the Q&A today. Next slide, please. So with that, for those who may not have already applied and may be new to us, I want to quickly go through what the grant program is and how we can get from making sure we got 40% of people to 100% of folks who are eligible, able to, and successfully applying. Next slide, please. So Virginia received more than $400 million through the American Rescue Plan, also known as ARPA or ARPA, and that is what we are using to develop and run our Child Care Stabilization Grant Program. The intent of this program is to stabilize our child care programs now, support you to address staffing challenges, help you make more strategic investments in your programs. There's 3 rounds of this, and again, to encourage and reward participation in the child care subsidy program. So kind of key objectives of this program that launched last Monday, November 1st. Next slide, please. It is slightly different from CARES. So many of you have received 1, 2, 3, or 4 rounds of CARES grant. Ballpark, CARES provided about $200 million in funding, just for point of reference, and this is over $400 million. It's also over a 9-month period, and so there are going to be up to 3 awards. We will accept applications on a rolling basis and reviewing each quarter, but we are encouraging everybody, if you want to get the maximum amount of funding, you've got to get that application in within this first round, which means you've got to get your application submitted by November 30th of 2021. The second quarter will cover December through February, and then the third quarter will cover March through May. So again, trying to give you a longer time horizon so that you can make those strategic investments. Next slide, please. A lot on this slide, and I know for folks on the phone, just so you understand, this is the list of everybody who's eligible, and this was all set forth in the federal law. So this is not something that Virginia had discretion on, but all of our providers that were licensed, registered, or otherwise regulated as of March 11th, 2021 are eligible. In addition, regardless of your status on March 11, 2021, if you are an approved child care subsidy program vendor, so that is you participate in Virginia's child care subsidy program, you are eligible. You are eligible whether you are currently open and serving children or if you are temporarily closed. And those programs that are temporarily closed due to the pandemic are eligible for funding at a slightly reduced rate. So again, you have to be licensed, registered, or otherwise regulated as of March 11th, 2021. Or you have to be an approved child care subsidy program vendor, which means you participate in Virginia's child care subsidy program. That's whether you're open or temporarily closed due to the pandemic. Next slide, please. So this slide then includes who is not eligible. So if you are exempt from licensure, except our religious exempt child day centers and certified preschools, if you're a program operated by a school division, if you're a program that is operated directly by your Head Start because you received ARPA Head Start dollars, if you've just begun operations after March 11, 2021, if you are permanently closed, and camps that are not subject to child care laws or regulations. So as this red box notes, a really important call out here, our grants application program is structured to only accept applications from those programs that were eligible according to the federal law, right? According to the rules set forth by Congress. If you can't find your program at all in the system, but you think you are eligible because you're not on this page, you feel you should be listed on the prior page, you will need to email us at childcaregrants@doe.virginia.gov. If you're saying, oh my gosh, Jenna, you're talking too fast, don't worry, we'll pop up that email address a couple of times throughout this, and we'll also send it out. So, but just to note, if for some reason you're typing in your information and you're not popping up in the system because we don't have you to be eligible, that you need to email us and then we can look into your case. Next slide, please. So now let's talk a little bit. We've talked about what the total amount of funding is, who's eligible, who's not eligible. I'm going to switch now and talk a little bit about the formula that's used to calculate how much you are eligible for. So in Virginia, we have some discretion over how we're setting the formula, and here are the key factors or variables that are used to determine how much you're eligible for. your size, so your licensed or your approved capacity, whether you're open or temporarily closed. And again, we're encouraging all programs to be open, whether you're full or part-time operation, and then whether you're located in a high need community. And that's based on a national indicator, the Center for Disease Control Social Vulnerability Index. So those are the kind of 4 factors. Becca, next slide, please. There is also, separate from the formula that generates the amount if you're eligible for the up to 3 payments, there's also a separate one-time incentive for programs who are participating or join the child care subsidy program. So you'll receive a bonus worth 20% of your base grant in your initial payment. And if you join after, right, if you sort of say, I'm not part of the child care subsidy program, but I'm interested in joining now, you will receive your bonus in the following quarter. So we're really trying to encourage all of our programs to be a part of our child care subsidy program, which makes child care affordable for low-income working families across the Commonwealth. And you'll receive a one-time bonus, whether you're currently part of this program now and been helping serve these families for years, or whether you want to join it during the grant period. The one exception here is that our temporarily closed program will not be eligible for bonus until they're reopened. So really trying to encourage programs to be open and to be a part of the child care subsidy program here. Next slide, please. This gives you the range by program type and size. I know sometimes you hear $400 million, that's like so much money. And then you remember that we might have over 5,000, between 5,000 and 6,000 programs that are receiving these dollars. Again, when you think about size, when you think about full or part-time, and you think about kind of whether you're operating in a historically underserved community, those are the factors that will determine where you are. But we wanted to provide some range so you have a sense of what's the minimum that you might receive as a family day home, kind of full-time versus part-time, a smaller child care center, a medium center, a large center, or an extra large center. And again, these are minimum and maximums. Folks will fall somewhere in between. The way that you'll figure out what you're eligible for is actually going onto the portal, beginning your application, and then it will help you calculate what you're eligible for. But this gives you a sense. This is the total award, and helpful to kind of know these ranges so you can get some sense of what it might be. But just remember, and Becca will walk us through this, that in order to figure out how much your center, your program, your site is eligible for, you're going to have to go on, log into the portal. Next slide, please. So with all of that money in mind, and you see these are pretty significant investments in early childhood, in childcare in the Commonwealth, let me speak just briefly on what the federal law says the conditions are for this funding and what's allowable, so that everybody understands that before we turn over to how to successfully apply. So these are just the as you know, right, in the fine print, with all of the federal dollars comes some expectations. Just want to walk through these quickly. Basically, you'll have to continue to follow all local, state, and federal rules. You need to meet the CDC guidelines to the extent possible, right? We know you guys have done an incredible job over the last 18 months, shifting how you operate to keep yourselves, your educators, your kids and families safe. You need to not reduce your employees' weekly pay or benefits for those that are working directly in childcare. And you need to kind of continue to really sort of use these funds for approved purposes. The feds did note, where possible, you can use these funds to provide tuition and co-payment relief for families that may be struggling. You're not required to. So again, just something that can be considered as you go forward. You will indicate your agreement, as Becca will walk us through with the screenshots later. You'll indicate your agreement to following these conditions when you electronically sign and submit your application. So just make sure you understand what you're asking for. Next slide, please. So the good news is that, of course, while the federal requirement requires you to use the funds for approved uses, that there's a lot of approved uses, right? And basically what we have heard from you loud and clear throughout this pandemic is that your operating costs are higher than others. There's additional costs related to COVID, and that you need more resources to be able to better compensate staff. And all of those are allowable uses. So whether it's wages, bonuses, benefit, scholarships, sort of incentives for folks to obtain the vaccine or take a day off to get the vaccine, all allowable. Rent, utility, facility maintenance and improvements, all allowable. Insurance payments, anything related to kind of your operations, all allowable. Next slide, please. And the list goes on. If you need personal protective equipment, cleaning, other materials, you need other equipment, indoor, outdoor, you want to kind of put kids more outside and need materials there, business software, technology upgrades, any of these things you may have been putting off because of the pandemic and need to make now, you should feel free to do goods and services, as well as kind of mental health services, whether it's for your staff, your educators, your back office staff, or for your kids and the children in your care. So again, from your staffing costs to your operational costs, equipment, supplies, goods and services, including mental health services, they provide a wide array of approved uses from the federal government. It's good to know as you think about making sure that you're able to put these dollars towards those approved uses. The one caveat, and of course want to note on what you can't use it, is the one thing you can't do is use these dollars for like new construction, right? For capital investments. And important to note that that is the one thing that is not allowable. We will have kind of guidance for you on this and encourage folks, you can use these dollars for operational experiences, kind of costs, excuse me, and think about then switching out and using some of your other revenues, whether it's your private pay revenues or your subsidy reimbursements, to fund things like capital improvements, if those are what is most needed at your site. It just makes sure that you're using these dollars for the child care grant stabilization to cover the operating costs and freeing up those other dollars to make investments if you need them in terms of capital investments. The other flexibility here, these can be used for allowable expenses prior to the grant period, and there's no time frame on when to spend the fund. So again, a lot of flexibility. We're encouraging folks when we talk about documentation to use it now, right? Particularly if you can apply it towards your operational costs, just so you can call it done, have your documentation there. But again, a ton of flexibility. These don't run out. You don't need to use them by a certain date. And then just a few more expectations before talking about how to successfully apply and get these resources. We will monitor compliance, as you might imagine, right? We're expected to make sure that you are following all the rules set forth by the federal government. This means you should keep track of receipts, expense reports, whatever documentation that you have that you met the grant requirements. Again, really thinking about how can you use these dollars pretty immediately, document that they're used to cover your operational costs, and then you've kind of checked that box. And you do need to keep the documents for 5 years. So again, just keep that in the back of the mind in terms of record keeping. If at any point you close, please let us know. You permanently close. If you have to close because you have a quarantine or you're closing for a holiday or temporarily, don't worry about it. You don't need to let us know. But if you permanently close during this grant period, the 9 months, you need to let us know. And then we can work to figure out with you, okay, what might you be eligible for? What might you not be eligible for? And again, like any grant program, if you are found in violation of laws and regulation, then we reserve the right to funding. Excellent. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Becca. Now that you've got a sense of what the grant program is and how it works, she's going to walk us through how to submit a successful application. Take it away, Becca.
Yeah. Before we jump in here, Kathy, I was going to see if you wanted to throw some questions our way before we start walking through the application.
Thank you. That would be good. There are some that pertain to what Jenna already shared. Can you talk a little bit about the SVI and how they, what is required in terms of indicating their SVI on the application? Can you just walk through a little bit how providers should be thinking about documenting or making that request or designation?
Sure. So you're not actually going to answer a specific question about SVI when you complete the application. So you're going to respond to a question about the city or county in which your program is located. And I can point that out when we're walking through the screenshots. So we are basing the SBI indicator on a city or county level. So if you look up your address in like the SBI calculator, you're not necessarily going to get the same designation that we're using, because the SBI website uses census tract data. And so, but again, we recognize, of course, that, even within, overall high income communities, there can be smaller areas that are still very high need. And so if you are not eligible for the SBI multiplier based on the city or county in which you're located, you can submit an appeal to request to have that multiplier added to your grant award. So we would ask that you go ahead and submit your application. And then there are instructions to appeal on the grants website, which is doe.virginia.gov/childcare grants. And we'll show that on the slides in a few different places as well. And you can find a link to that document. We don't specify the exact documents that you need to send us, but we do provide the sort of thresholds or the indicators that you would need to meet to qualify for the bonus if you're not located in a high SBI city or county.
Thank you, Becca. We've also had questions from folks when you were emphasizing the desire for programs to enroll in the subsidy program. We've had questions about how do you enroll or be part of the subsidy program?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the Department of Social Services, so as many of you may know, the DOE assumed oversight of the child care subsidy program over the summer, but the Department of Social Services continues to administer the program. So we work really closely together to actually set policy and carry out activities. And so if you're interested in becoming a child care subsidy program vendor, which is what we call providers that participate in the program and serve children that participate in the program, you would actually apply through the vendor manager services with the Department of Social Services. So if you go to childcareva.com, the childcare microsite, you should be able to find information on what it takes to become a subsidy vendor. And we can be sure to share that information with folks that attended the webinar as well after the call. We also might be able to drop a link in the chat at some point when I'm not sharing my screen here.
Thank you. Also had some questions. You showed the chart that showed the approximate amounts, or kind of how the formula is determined. If someone feels that they've been approved for a grant, but the amount doesn't match with what you indicated on the chart, what's the best way for them to request a review of the amount?
Sure. So a couple things to keep in mind about that chart. So first, I do just want to emphasize that's just intended to kind of show a range, and it is by no means like the only possible set of outcomes for your grant award when you submit your application. That slide also assumes full-time operations and assumes that you're open. So if you're closed or if you operate part-time, you would be eligible for a lower grant award. But all that said, if you submit your application, or if you're filling out your application and you get to the part where you can see an estimate of your grant award and it seems lower than you were expecting, we would ask that you go ahead and submit your application and then send an email to the child care grants team with your application number in it, so that we can look it up and help just walk through how your grant award was calculated and verify that everything looks good. The number one thing that seems to have thrown folks off, and we'll talk about this too when we walk through the screenshots, is we've gotten a number of applications from folks who have unintentionally indicated that they were a part-time operator. And that ends up resulting in a lower grant award. So when you're responding to that part-time question, please make sure that you're reading it carefully and responding, based on your program's operations, because that does have an impact on your grant award. And anytime we need to go in and edit your application, that can slow things down in review as well.
All right, and just a couple more questions, and then we'll let you get back to the presentation. If folks are not able to find their facilitate in the child care search tool that's part of the application, what's the best way for them to get the attention of someone to help them?
Yeah, so we'll actually talk about that in the slides in this next section. But the first thing that we would ask you to do is make sure you're inputting all of your information correctly. We'll talk about that a bit more in a second. But if you are 100% confident that you're inputting it right, you know you're eligible or you think you're eligible, and information's not coming up, then we just ask you to email the child care grants team, not the help desk. Email the grants team so that we can look into it for you and get you added into the system.
Awesome. And then several folks have asked, how long should they expect it to take to get approval once they submit their application?
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about the review process later in the slides as well. So it's a little hard to land on a specific number of days. It depends a little bit on whether your application, can go kind of straight to the IRS database for tax ID matching, or if it needs a little bit more review. And, will always depend on the volume of applications that we're processing at any given time. As Jenna said at the beginning of the session, we received an incredible number of applications last week, and we are so excited to be able to get these resources out to folks. But we also need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence with every application and that we're reviewing them, carefully before moving them forward and approving for payment. And so I can't give an exact number, but please know that we are working as quickly as we can. And if we do need additional information from you to process your application, we'll reach out. You don't need to check in with us or ask if we need anything, because we'll certainly be in touch.
Okay. Lots more questions, but I think some of them may be answered by the next things that you say. One more that I will just try to give folks peace of mind about, will you answer the question about whether these are on a first come, first served basis, whether there's any danger of the funds running out?
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that one up now, Kathy. No, the funds are not on a first come, first served basis. So while we are encouraging you to get your application in by the November 30th deadline so you can receive the maximum amount of funding, there's not necessarily any benefit to having your application submitted on November 1st or November 11th. You'll still get the same amount that you would get. And so, that was kind of that was a big priority for us going into this in terms of how we structured the awards, how we structured the application process. We know that when awards are first come, first serve, it can, disadvantage some of our providers that need a little more time to complete the application process. And we, the intent of this program really is to support as many eligible providers as we can. And so, again, I do want to reassure folks, and that's true also of, as long as you submit your application by November 30th, it doesn't matter if it's been approved before then. You would still be eligible for a first round payment if you're approved for payment. So, once if your application is in by, 11:59 on November 30th, you're good to go from our perspective in terms of having met the deadline. And we will, you would not be penalized for us, processing your application after that date. We'll continue to process and issue awards for the first quarter, even after November 30th.
Great. And I promise, just one more, and then we'll get back. I see some folks are a little anxious about, they must have heard in some of our conversation that it's necessary to be a subsidy vendor to get a grant, or necessary to be in a socially vulnerable area. Would you just console these folks to let them know what the rules are?
Yes, so those are both add-ons or kind of bonuses. Those are not criteria for receiving a grant. So the main criteria for receiving a grant first is that you have to have an active license. So your license, registration, permit, certificate, kind of whatever approval that you're operating under has to be active. So if you have, voluntarily, given up your license, or if you lost your license for any reason, you would not be eligible to apply. But as long as you have an active, you're actively regulated by the state or a locality in Virginia, then from there, you either have to have held that status or had another, licensed or regulated status with no break in service on or before March 11th of 2021, or you have to be an approved subsidy vendor. So where folks might be getting confused is that subsidy vendor kind of status is basically another way to be eligible for the program if you have received your license or other approval to operate after March 11th. But it is not, if you were licensed or regulated before March 11th, it doesn't matter if you're a subsidy vendor or not. And then the SVI is just a way for us to provide a little bit of additional support to providers that are located in areas and who are serving families who are higher need and might need more resources and support, to grapple with the ongoing effects of the pandemic. And to providers who, themselves may be more economically marginalized as well. So the SVI in particular has no bearing on eligibility whatsoever. It's just an extra kind of add-on or benefit if you happen to be located in or can demonstrate that you are serving high need kiddos. And then if you are a subsidy provider, you can also get a 20% bonus on top of your base grant award. And then that's true if you become a subsidy vendor at some point in the application or in the grant period as well. You would get the bonus in the following quarter.
Awesome. Terrific. More to come, but let's hear a little bit more information from y'all first. Thank you.
Sure. Jenna, did you want to add anything else there?
So one piece I wanted to really encourage folks to do is to get, and we'll share the link right today, and Becca will walk us through. In fact, if you've got another computer or phone, you want to look it up now, would encourage folks to do that. But it is, the sooner you get on the portal, the better, right? To kind of understand if you're having any trouble logging in, to understand if there's what you might be eligible, if you've got questions about that, about your social vulnerable index. So it's, please hear us clearly. This is not first come, first serve, but I also know that sometimes we push this off. We're like, oh, I'll do that later. And we are really encouraging people to kind of get on now, right? You can even do it on your phone, right? It's mobile friendly while we're doing this now. To take a look at it, to become familiar with it, so that there's plenty of time for us to assist you. So really encouraging, because some of these questions I think will be helped if folks can log on, and the sooner you do that in November, the better it is for you, and enables us to better help you. So with that, Becca, let's talk about how to submit a successful application.
Awesome. All right. So a couple just kind of quick things to know before you apply. So the first is that, we are only accepting applications online. And so you do need an email address in order to create a user account, log into the portal, and submit an application. And we are not accepting any applications on paper for the stabilization grants. Do know that the application is available in multiple languages. And once you select a language, all the communications from the grant system will come to you in that language. And then the last kind of thing to keep in mind is that, all of the required information is going to be entered into the application itself. So you won't need to upload any documents. You won't need to email us any information. The only exception to that is if you decide to receive funds via direct deposit, you will receive an email to sign up for direct deposit outside of the grant system. So you won't enter your banking information, you won't enter any of your payment information into the grant system itself. And we'll talk about that more in a few slides here. Also keep in mind that, some of the information about your program is pre-populated into the application from the child care licensing database, the database for your locality, if you're approved by local ordinance, or from infant toddler family daycare, if you're a system approved home. And you can edit this information if anything is incorrect. It should take about 15 to 20 minutes to complete the rest of the application, but you'll just want to make sure that you have this information listed in red, ready to go, so that when you log in and get started, you've got everything you need to complete it in one sitting, because you can't save your application and come back to it later. All right, so you're going to start by registering for an account with your email address. So again, you have to have an email address in order to submit an application. So if you haven't created an account yet and you go to the portal, you'll start by clicking on this "Don't have an account, register here" button. And another page will pop up that has, is asking you for your information, your email. And then once you submit it, you'll get a link to reset your password. We've heard from a lot of folks that have gotten stuck here, where the email hasn't gone through, or the link doesn't work. Some of these may be firewall issues with your internet provider. Sometimes the emails can end up in your spam account. But in either case, if this is where you're getting stuck, you're going to want to contact the help desk for assistance. The DOE grants team doesn't have the ability to see kind of that back end user account side of the system. So we can't reset passwords. We can't send you a new verification code. We can't handle any of that kind of user account information. All of those requests have to go to the help desk. So once you log in, this is what your landing page will look like, or this is what you'll see once you log in. So you can click on this globe in the top right-hand corner to select another language. And like I said, once you choose another language, the whole portal will translate, and then all of the automated communications about your application as it moves through the approval statuses will come to you in your preferred language as well. The landing page also includes the phone number for the help desk and the grants team email address. I do want to flag this screenshot is outdated. This phone number is getting corrected, but I wasn't able to grab a screen grab before it was corrected. So if you get an email from the DOE team, the correct phone number should be in the grants team signature. And this is updated on the website now as well. So if you go onto the portal, you should see the correct phone number. And then this has the DOE grants team email address. I believe that the help desk included their email address as well here. So if you're in the middle of your application and you need assistance, you can contact the help desk and they can walk you through the process. So then you can click either here on provider portal, or you can click on the button at the bottom to start your application. So the first thing that you'll need to do in the provider portal is connect your user account with your program's facility record in the grant system. So you can kind of think about it as you're creating your own account with your email address, and then we already have a bunch of records in the system about your programs. And by looking up your program, you're basically linking your personal account with your facility's information. And you look that up by finding your facility type in the drop-down menu here, and notice that there is a scroll bar. So if you don't see your program type, you keep scrolling. Keep scrolling, and it should be in that list there. And then inputting your facility ID. So if you are licensed or regulated, by the VDOE, you should be able to find your facility ID in the child care search tool. This is a code assigned to you by us. And then if you're a family day home approved by local ordinance or the family day system, you don't necessarily have a state issued ID. And so you can contact us for help finding this information, or you may have received it from your local contact. I know Fairfax sent them out to their providers, Alexandria sent them out to their providers, and infant toddler family daycare has been working with their providers to get this information to them as well. So we committed to getting you your facility IDs in an individualized letter, but we ran into some technological issues getting those out the door quickly and didn't want to wait to launch the portal, before or until after we had sent those letters. So we're still working to share that information. You can keep an eye out for some more information and instructions on how to find your facility ID in the meantime. So, let's talk quickly about how to use the childcare search tool. So any program except those that are approved by local ordinance or approved by a family day system should be able to find their facility ID this way. So if you're a licensed child day center, a licensed family day home, if you're a religious exempt child day center, all of those types of programs, certified preschool, you should be able to find your facility ID in the search tool. Sometimes it just takes kind of using the right combination of keywords and the right search strategies to get it to come up. So I'm going to stop sharing the slides really quickly, and I'm going to pull up the search tool here. All right, so the URL to the search tool is in the grant portal. So you should be able to click on it directly from there, and it'll take you to this DSS search for child daycare page. You'll see the tool is still on the DSS public site, and it will stay here while we're working to improve our licensing data system, but it'll eventually migrate over to the DOE public site. So I'm going to start by typing my facility name in the search bar. So let's say I'm a center called Richmond Baptist Weekday Preschool. So if I was a licensed child day center, I can type this into the search bar. And then if I clicked search, assuming this was a real program, it would show up under the license tab right here. Now, if I'm a religious exempt child day center, I can't necessarily search under the name of my program. I have to type in the name of the church that holds my exemption in the search tool. So let's say I type Richmond Baptist Church instead, and then I could click search. And then again, assuming that was a real program, it would come up under the unlicensed tab down here at the bottom. So if you say, all right, I know that's what my program is called. None of these options are showing up. I could just try typing Baptist in here. And then let's say I'm in 22553 is my zip code. And then I could choose, one of the program types if I'm a child day center, and then click search. And that might help to narrow the options a bit if the keywords that you're using in the search tool aren't generating any results. Now, if you're a family day home, even if you go by another name, so let's say I'm Rebecca Ulrich, I'm a family day home operator, and my business is called RU Childcare. So I'm still going to be in the search tool and in the childcare licensing database under my name. It doesn't matter if I'm doing business under another name. So I would have to type Rebecca Ulrich into the search bar. And then, I could input my zip code if I wanted to, or I could narrow it to family day homes here. And then I would click search. And depending on whether I'm a licensed or unlicensed family day home, my name would show up under one of these tabs.
And Becca, I'm
yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but I think we've got some folks who are a little confused. So
Sure.
You have bounced to the facility search page on the DSS
Yes.
site. This is not on the portal for applications.
No, so this is how you find, if you don't know what your facility ID is, this is how you can find it if you are a licensed or regulated program by the VDOE.
Okay, and would you, again, and we probably just need to have this on every slide, on every presentation, the URL for the application portal.
Yes, I can put it in the chat.
I think folks are wanting to be able to go in and actually follow along and make sure they're understanding what you're saying.
Got it. Actually don't know if I have a chat function available to me.
Yeah, you want to just
Sure, it's doe.virginia.gov/child care grants.
all one word.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing again. So when you, to avoid pulling up an individual provider's actual record, when you do log into the, or when you do find your facility in the search tool, this is more or less what it would look like when it pulled up. So you can see it'll come up with a record. It'll have the provider's name, address, their phone number, the type of facility that they are, the information about their license, their schedule, who their licensing inspector is, and the facility ID will be down here in the bottom right-hand corner. And that is the, it should be all numbers, and that is the ID number that you would use to log in, or to, I should say, connect your facility record with your user account in the system. So if you are a local ordinance home, or if you're a provider that's approved by the Family Day System, you won't be able to find your facility ID in the search tool for the purposes of the grant program. So if you're permitted in Fairfax or in Alexandria, and you're a local ordinance home, you would use your local ID or permit number to log in. If you're a Fairfax provider, you want to make sure you include the P and don't include the hyphen or anything that comes after it. So just the P and the first few numbers there. Arlington approved homes and homes approved by infant toddler family daycare have a unique ID created just for the grant program because they don't have a locally assigned ID. And so again, you can reach out to a contact in your locality, or you can reach out to the grants team if you need help finding your number. So once you've input your facility ID and your program type, your facility record should appear like this below. So you can click on select, and then you would click next, and a one-time security code would be sent to the email address associated with the facility record. So you'll want to pay attention to the name under facility contact in this box, because that is the person that the email will be sent to. So if that's somebody that's no longer with your program or who doesn't have access to their email address, you will need to contact the child care grants team for us to get that corrected or updated in the system. If it looks like it is going to a correct email address, but you haven't received anything, make sure that you check your spam folder if the email hasn't come through after a couple of minutes. And so if you're applying on behalf of multiple facilities, you'll connect your user account to as many facility records as you need to. And you repeat the security process each time you make that initial connection with the facility record. Now, if you can't find your facility in the application portal, so let's talk about this a bit. So I know this has been a challenge, and you know, we apologize that it's been difficult. Some of those have been system issues on our end. And again, we apologize for the delay in being able to communicate this individualized information to folks. The first thing that you should do if you are, if you've got the information and you're typing it in and nothing's coming up, double check your entries. So make sure you've chosen the correct facility type. Make sure you've read through all of the options and you're choosing the right type of program that you are. And then try typing your facility ID number directly into the text box. Sometimes when you copy and paste, it can add extra spaces that you can't see, but the system doesn't recognize, and it'll generate an error. That's happened a number of times, and we've been able to resolve a few of the issues providers have been facing that way. If you can confirm you're typing everything in correctly and still nothing is coming up, as Jenna said earlier in the session, the grants system is only structured to accept applications from providers that have been identified as eligible, that meet one of those two criteria of having been licensed or approved before March 11th, or are an approved child care subsidy program vendor. So make sure that you read the application criteria. And here is the URL to the grants website where you can find all of the information about the program, as well as a link to the portal. So take a look at the application criteria or the eligibility criteria. And if you do meet those criteria and you're still not able to find your record in the system, that's when you would want to contact us at childcaregrants@doe.virginia.gov. There have been a couple of issues where records have just been unintentionally omitted from the system, or we can see you in our eligibility database, but for some reason your record's not showing up in the system. Or there are some instances that we touched on earlier where if you held another licensed or approved status before March 11th and then switched to a different status after March 11th, we don't always recognize that transition immediately. And so we'll have to tell the system that you're eligible. And then, so you would need to contact us to let us know that that's the case. For those of you that have recently become subsidy vendors, that would either make you eligible or, could just mean that you get the subsidy bonus. Again, there can sometimes be sometimes it can be a matter of a couple of 24 hours or a couple of days lag in getting one system up to date and then communicating that information to another system. And so we can get all of that corrected, we can get all of it updated. You just need to let us know, and we can make those changes on our end. And again, as I said, if you are if we're working on kind of troubleshooting any of those issues, we will make sure that you're able to get your application submitted by November 30th. You will not be penalized for a system issue on our end. Why don't I pause there? Kathy, are there questions that would be good to stop and answer here before we move on with the rest of the application?
Sure. I think, lots of questions about, what do I do if? And let me just see if we can try to, kind of clarify this or put it in buckets. If your question is about having trouble getting into the portal, or you're, identifying your ID, then your questions go to the help desk.
Yeah, so if you have an issue with like a user account related challenge, yes, they go to the help desk. If you're not sure what your facility ID is, the help desk will be able to tell you as long as you're eligible and in the system. But if it's not recognizing your facility ID and type combination, and you're entering everything incorrectly, and you want to know why you're not in the system, those questions would need to come to DOE.
Okay. And if somebody has not applied yet, their best bet is to first go to the portal, open the application, have their license in front of them, because that facility ID is located on their license, and that can be typed in just from the license. Mm-hmm. If that doesn't work, and if the sort of search feature on the application doesn't work, then they can go to that DSS facility search site that you just took them to?
Well, yeah, I mean, if they want to verify to ensure that the facility ID number that they're inputting is the one is correct, yes, they can verify that against what's in the DSS search tool. But the goal of the search tool is really for folks who aren't sure what their facility ID is or want to verify it. But if you've got it already, then you don't need to use the DSS search tool.
So it should be a fairly simple process of just typing in your facility ID. So, just all that you showed is really additional steps for folks to take if it doesn't kind of pop up or isn't easy to identify in the application portal. But for the most part, because you have received so many applications so far, I'm going to assume that it's a fairly simple process and that it's going to work for most people.
Yeah, again, there are a few outliers. And, I know some folks were having a hard time finding themselves in the search tool because they were using, for example, some family day homes were using their business name, not their personal name, or some religious exempt programs were using their program name, not the church name. And so we just wanted to make sure everyone knew kind of how to use that tool to find the information that they needed if they need to use it. But that's not a necessary step if you've already got it all covered.
Okay, good deal. Also, let's see. We've had a couple of people saying that after they apply, they received an email saying something about responding with a verification code within 24 hours, but they're uncertain about, where or how they respond with that verification code.
So here, let's click, well, let's see. I think I have no, I might not have a screenshot of that. So when you select your program in the provider portal and click submit, there should then be a text box that pops up and allows you to input your facility or your verification code in there. So you're just going to want to avoid exiting out of that page before you track down your verification code. Salesforce will log you out after I think it's after 30 minutes of inactivity. And so, you will want to make sure that you can, get in touch with somebody and if the code's expired or if you can't then input it right away, that you say, okay, I'm going to request another code, and have them give it to you. But if it's going to your personal email, don't exit out of that page until you go to your email, get the security code and input it into that text box.
And when you say, to kind of get a new code, that's the help desk?
No, you can request another code on that same page. So you can request up to 5 codes before you have to get help desk assistance.
Okay, but once they exit out of that page, if they apply, exit, and then get a pop up about an verification code, then they have to start over again, not with the application, but with the being able to.
Yeah, if you exit out of that page, you'll lose the text box, and so then you'll have to request another code.
Okay, and I know just because of the crushing volume that you've been getting, folks are wondering if you're getting the feedback that it's virtually impossible to get through to the help desk.
Yeah, so just as in the same way that we've received an incredible number of applications and we're getting a ton of questions, to the DOE email address, the help desk is getting tons and tons of questions as well. And it's everything from quick fixes like resetting passwords to, members of the help desk are, sitting with providers and helping them kind of question by question complete their application. And so not all of the requests that the help desk members are processing are necessarily quick turnaround requests. So we are in the process of getting some additional staff, some additional capacity added to the help desk to try to avoid some of those long wait times and ensure that every provider that calls or emails is able to get their questions answered. But I believe they fielded nearly 300 calls on the second day of the application portal being open. So part of it is just volume. So we are working to try to get it more capacity added there so that folks can get through.
Awesome. And I know you've answered this probably at least 3 times, but it's the burning question of the day. Once they apply and they say they've been approved, how long will it take for them to receive their payment?
So once you've been approved for payment, how long it'll actually take, for funds to arrive at your doorstep will vary depending on, how the payments are being processed. So if you are having your payment processed via paper check, it can take, somewhere in the ballpark of 4 to 6 weeks. And then if it's direct deposit, somewhere in the range of 3 to 4 weeks. That said, every first quarter payment is being issued via paper check. And that is because you do have to sign up for direct deposit outside of the grant system. And we just wanted to make sure we could get all the payments out to everybody without any delay or any kind of processing related issues. So that's another thing to keep in mind. You might have selected direct deposit. Your first quarter check is still, or first quarter payment is still going to come via paper check. Again, we're working on processing everything as quickly as we can, but also the timing does just come down to volume. And so, we're working to get approvals out the door as swiftly as possible. But I would not feel any concern until it's been, 4 to 6 weeks from the time you were approved for payment and you haven't seen a check come yet.
Thank you. Then we also have some questions, and I'll let you know what they're about, and you can either answer them now, or if it's coming up in the next set of presentation, you can hit pause. One is about, their first payment. Are they able to get direct deposit? How does that work? And then others are asking about tax implications from these grants and for information about the 990s.
Yes. So the funds are considered taxable. So the Congress did not exempt these resources from taxation, and so they'd be taxed the same way that a payment from DSS, for participating in the child care subsidy program, like payment for care, would be taxed under state and federal law. So that is something to keep in mind. And then the first round payments, again, will all be issued via paper check. If you did not select direct deposit when you completed your application and you'd like to change your method of payment, you can do that by emailing us, and you'll just need to indicate what email address you want that sign up information to enroll in direct deposit to go to, so that we can get that shared with you appropriately. And you won't get that email until VECF has processed your payment. So once you are approved for payment, you should see an email from bill.com in the next few days asking you to sign up for direct deposit. And then Kathy, I'm sorry, the 990s.
Yeah, are the grants taxable income?
Oh, yes, yeah. And so if you're eligible to receive a 1099, you'll get one from VECF both this year and next year, as applicable. All right. Should I keep cruising here?
Yeah, I think you should.
Okay.
More questions, but we'll let
Yes.
you get through them a little bit.
All right. So once you're all connected, you found your facility ID, you've linked it to your user account, you can start applying. So I really, really encourage everyone to take a moment to read all of the information on this overview page, which includes some reminders about the application process and the grant conditions as well. This would also be the right time to make sure you have all the information that you need to verify the information and answer questions on the application. So you might want to have your license or registration. You might want to have a recently completed W-9 form, things along those lines that will, make sure that you've got everything you need to complete this, accurately and efficiently. If you need to gather those documents, this would be the right place to exit the application before you actually get started. And then you can come back to it when you're ready, because once you start, you can't save your work. It has to be completed in one sitting. So as we described earlier, some of the information in the application will be pre-populated from data that we have on file about your program. So you should really carefully review this information in this, the following information about your facility has been pre-filled. So it's starting with your facility name, your address, the number of children you're authorized to serve, the name of your facility contact, an email and phone number, and whether you're an approved subsidy vendor. These are all pieces of information that we've pulled from the licensing database. You should carefully review it, and you should correct any errors if errors need to be corrected. But if you change this information, make sure you're changing it to reflect what you want in the licensing database. So you shouldn't be changing the facility contact email to a personal email where you want to get notifications about the grant award. We'll ask about that later. This is all about your facility contact information. And if you change anything here, we will have to verify it. So make sure you're only changing it if it's incorrect. And do note that, if you are changing it, and, we'll work to get information updated in the licensing database, but it won't necessarily be immediate. I don't want to discourage anyone from editing information that's incorrect. You absolutely should. But I just want to emphasize, why you would, or under what circumstances you would correct this information. And that is if there is an error, if, the facility contact is no longer with your program anymore, if the email address is misspelled or invalid, those are instances where you would want to go in and correct this information. So this next section under tell us how we can get in touch with you about your grant application, that's where you can provide information for the best way to get in touch with you. So if you want to put your cell phone number there, if you want to put a personal email address or an individual email address there that doesn't belong in the licensing system, that's fine. This is how we'll get in touch with you if we have questions for you about your grant application. And here is also where you can sign up for text message notifications if you'd like to receive them as well. So you'll also answer some questions about whether you're open or closed, in which city or county you're located in, whether you operate full-time or part-time, and whether you provide early Head Start or Head Start services. So again, you want to review and answer these questions very carefully, particularly this part-time question, because this seems to be one that has tripped some folks up. So you only want to respond yes to this question if you operate on a part-time basis. And we've defined that as 780 hours or less in a given year. And if you operate on a year-round basis, that would be about 15 hours or less a week. So you can kind of do that math and identify if you are, based on your operating hours, part-time under this definition, and only respond yes if you are part-time.
And Becca, for programs that run on a school year calendar, can you just give a little more advice about how they should determine whether they're part-time or not?
Yeah, so under those circumstances, if you operate on a school year calendar, but you still operate 40 hours a week, you would do 40 hours a week times the number of months that you're operational for. So it doesn't have to mean year-round operations. That's why I know the 780 hours feels like kind of an arbitrary, yearly amount, but we were trying to pick one number that, no matter what schedule you operated on, you could kind of figure out how your hours would calculate and compute against.
Thank you.
Now, so the next section is a W-9 form. So you're filling out a W-9 form directly in the application. You don't have to upload any documents. There's no follow-up in terms of the tax information here. So I do want to be very clear that, DOE and the grants help desk can't give kind of specific advice or instructions on how to complete this form. There's a link to the IRS website if you have any specific questions about, what tax classification you should choose, or other questions about how to complete this form. But in general, you want to complete this the same way that you would fill out a tax return for your business. So you want to make sure that the legal name and the taxpayer identification number correspond. That might mean that you leave this business name question blank if your business is the legal name that's associated with your taxpayer ID number. So this is just here, the second question with business name. This is only here if it's different from the legal name associated with the taxpayer ID number. So a number of folks have submitted applications, and like I said, we run every application through the IRS database to confirm that your tax information matches what's in the IRS. And we've gotten not a ton, but 100 or so applications that have come back with the 10 that didn't match, and that's most likely because the legal name and the tax ID number don't correspond in the licensing database, or sorry, in the IRS database. We don't collect that in the licensing database. And so you just really want to make sure that you are inputting the correct legal name that corresponds with your tax number. And then also make sure that you're carefully completing the address section here as well. So this address is where your paper check will be mailed, and should be the address of the legal entity that you indicated earlier in that form, the legal name. And then same with the email and phone number there as well. Now, in this next section, you can decide how you'd like to be paid. So again, all first quarter payments are going to be processed via paper check, even if you selected direct deposit. So paper checks will be mailed to that address on your W-9 form in 4 to 6 weeks from the day that you're approved for payment. If you would like to be paid via direct deposit in future payments, you can indicate that here. So if I were to click on EFT here, another text box would pop up asking me for the email address of the bank holder for my program. So you will not fill out the bank information in this application. You'll get, once you're approved for payment, a couple days later, you'll get an invitation to enroll in direct deposit with Bill.com. And that's where you submit your banking information for electronic payment. And if you do have any questions about that process, we kind of go into detail about those steps in the FAQs on our website. And if you don't complete the enrollment process with Bill.com before your next payment is ready, you'll just get a paper check. All right, so this section is pretty straightforward, just looking for some demographic information about your facility leader. Again, these questions are optional, but just help us to track our progress and ensure that we're, distributing funds equitably across the Commonwealth, and also helps us to meet our federal reporting requirements as well. And then we'll ask you to tell us how you plan to spend the grant funds. And again, this is not binding. This just helps us identify kind of where you're needing the most support or planning to spend the resources. You have to pick something, but if you decide to spend the money on something else later, that's fine. It just obviously has to fall in an allowable category of costs. All right, so the system will then generate an estimated award, and these are all populated based on your responses to questions earlier in the application. You can't edit any of these fields. And this amount shouldn't be considered final because your application still has to be processed and approved. So your final payment amount will be included in an award letter in the provider portal after your application has been approved. So, review these carefully, and if something looks off, you can go back and check that you've answered all the questions accurately in the application. But if you still aren't sure that things are calculating correctly, you're going to want to submit your application and send us an email. And then here's where you'll indicate your agreement with the grant terms and conditions. So again, you'll want to read this information really carefully. And if you do have any questions about what any of these conditions mean, you can look at the frequently asked questions documents on the website. So you'll want to do one more review of your information. Please take the time to review it carefully. And if anything needs to be corrected, you can click on the edit button above any of the sections, and you can go back and fix it. Once you submit your application, the only thing that you can edit yourself is your W-9 information. Any other changes have to come through the grants team. And that's why it's so important that you review this information carefully before you submit it, because if we have to go back and enter corrections in your application, it can significantly slow down the time that it takes to review and approve it. So take the time to review all of this information before you submit. Once you're sure everything looks good, then you can click submit, and you'll get a confirmation page with your application number. If you don't land here, you haven't submitted your application. So you'll know that you've submitted once you get this confirmation number, this grant award number. You should also get an email to the account that your user account is registered with, and letting you know that your application is under review. And it's important to note that you can log back in at any time and you can see what the status of your application is. You can also download a copy of your application. You can edit your W-9 form here. And then, once you're approved for payment, you could also download your grant award letter here as well. So once you submit your application, it automatically goes into review. So if everything on your application matches our database, then we'll verify your tax information right away against the IRS database, or the following business day. We'll run it against the IRS database. If your taxpayer information matches, you'll get approved for payment. And if it doesn't match, then you'll get asked to check your W-9 form and resubmit that information. If your tax information doesn't match, you will get an automated email letting you know that your application's been opened back up for review. You don't need to email us. We will, go through and contact each person individually to let you know that you need to go in and edit your W-9 information. If you see that and you go ahead and edit it anyway, we'll be able to tell on the back end. But if you aren't sure what to do, we will reach out to you to let you know, what the next steps are there. If the information on your application differs a little from some of the information in our database, then a member of the grants team will review it individually. I've gotten a few emails from folks saying, that they saw their application was in review, or that they had friends that applied and their application already got approved and theirs hadn't. So every application goes through some form of review. Some are just slightly more expedited than others. And it's perfectly normal, and it doesn't mean that your application is not going to be approved if someone on the grants team is reviewing it. Again, I don't want anyone to be discouraged from correcting information on your application, because we're working as quickly as we can to review and approve applications for payment. And the most important thing that you can do is submit a complete, accurate application. So we may reach out to you to verify information, or we may not need to. We may be able to verify it with your licensing inspector, or it might be an update that was made to the licensing system that just didn't get captured immediately, and we can check it against our own databases. If we do reach out to you and we don't hear back from you within 30 days, we will reject your application, and then you can reapply in the next quarter. But that's only if we don't hear back from you after making, multiple attempts to contact you. But again,
jump in here and ask a question, Becca.
Sure.
And I assume this question may be from Family Day Home staff. They're wondering if there are particular times of day or days of the week that they should expect to get those calls.
So we're generally trying to reach out to folks via email instead of by the phone, in an effort to, avoid any kind of unavailability related issues. So, we'll probably try to reach out to you a couple times via email before we give you a call on the phone. So I would recommend keeping an eye on your email address, where you told us to reach out to you. And then we don't have to necessarily try to coordinate a phone call.
Okay. And I've had several folks say if they get a thank you page and with an application ID number, does that mean that they've completed the application?
Yes.
And the application due date again is, what's the deadline for submitting applications?
And as a reminder, this is the deadline for first quarter applications. It's November 30th. If you apply after November 30th, you can still be considered for a second round and then third round grant award. You just won't get all 3 payments, and you won't kind of get the maximum amount of funding available to you.
Okay. And I see we're running a little short on time, and there are a number of other questions which I can sort of group into categories, but do you have a few more slides that you want to try to get through, Becca?
The only other thing I just wanted to kind of put up on the screen here is examples of, or kind of instances where you contact the help desk versus when you contact the grants team. And I apologize, I should have included the phone number and the email address on this slide, but I can add that so that when we send the slides around, we can they can be there. The help desk again is anything IT related. So anything related to your user account, and assistance completing your application. So if you aren't sure, or if you're running into issues with your browser, or something's not loading correctly, or you're not sure how to navigate, the drop-down menus or the buttons, the help desk can help you with that. Also, if you're 100% sure that you're eligible based on the criteria and you just cannot find your facility ID anywhere, the grant or the help desk can also help you find that. But you're going to want to reach out to the DOE grants team with questions about your eligibility, questions about conditions associated with receiving funding. You'll want to reach out to us about appeals. And then if you need to update your contact information in the grant system, you'll need to contact us for that as well.
Okay. And I think, that we have a number of questions of people asking about very specific items. Could this be covered, replace carpeting, install an AC unit, those sorts of things. I'm going to assume that if they go to www.doe.virginia.gov/childcare grants, there will be plenty of information there with frequently asked questions and information about specifically what types of items are allowable uses for those funds. Is that correct, Becca?
Yeah, so there are not necessarily like individual itemized lists of the types of items that are considered eligible purchases. I think we were hoping to continue to get a little bit more information now, especially that we've gotten so many applications from folks to know what kinds of things people are asking about and are interested in. Again, the real only exception is major construction, major renovations. That would be something like, completely changing the purpose of an area of your house, or that would be, again, like gutting and completely renovating a new, childcare facility. If you're replacing carpeting, if you're making repairs to your HVAC units, if you're, replacing like a lead water line, if you're like any of those kinds of things are technically considered like minor facility improvements that should be allowable, under the law. Again, if you're not sure, you can use the grant funds to cover your payroll, to cover, other basic operating expenses that are, obviously and 100% covered under the program. And then, any revenue that you're receiving from providing care, you can kind of free that up to use for other purposes.
Right. And for those who are family day home operators and are solo, have no employees, they can pay themselves.
They can, yes,
Okay.
and should.
And at least a portion of rent and utilities.
Yes, yeah, a portion. And it would be, you'd want to kind of think about the same way that you might claim, rent or utilities on your taxes for your business. Would be kind of one way to think about the right amount of your mortgage or utilities to cover with the grant.
Great. If folks are enrolled as subsidy vendors but don't currently have families, utilizing subsidy, are they still eligible for the bonus?
Yes.
Great. If folks have to begin to complete their application and then need to leave the session before they complete it, will they need to start back over? And does that create a problem?
They will need to start back over, but it shouldn't create an issue. Basically, the system will just erase any progress that you've made, and then you'll need to start from the beginning.
All right. And then they don't need to reapply for each round once they've applied the first time, then they don't need to reapply.
Correct. Your future payments will be awarded automatically.
Also, a number of questions about specifics about serving Head Start children. Can you give just a few sentences about which Head Start serving programs are eligible and which are not?
Sure. So again, the intent here, and this was, under guidance from the Federal Office of Child Care. The intent here was to ensure that programs who have already received support from the Office of Head Start through the American Rescue Plan Act and previous sources of relief funding are not effectively getting, kind of double money for kids that are enrolled in and participating in Head Start. And so, the exception to that are providers that operate under a contract with a Head Start recipient or grantee to provide Head Start, early Head Start services, but they are not necessarily the direct recipient of Head Start funds from the Office of Head Start. And so, we were relying on a designation from the Office of Head Start and the data that we have to identify the programs that are kind of in one of those partner sort of contract models. But if your program, seems to have been weeded out or identified as a grantee when perhaps you may not have been, you can submit an appeal and we can, consider your appeal and add you to the system if you're not in fact a direct recipient of the Head Start funds. The other kind of condition when we would accept an appeal from a Head Start grantee or recipient would be if you operate or are kind of providing mixed delivery services. So you're serving children who are not covered by Head Start or early Head Start. And under those circumstances, we would ask you to document or demonstrate that you are enrolling and serving children above and beyond your funded enrollment for Head Start, and that the funds you might have received from the Office of Head Start don't therefore cover all children enrolled.
Perfect. Well, I think we are down to the wire, and you all have provided so much great information and answered so many questions. We still have a number left, but I think many of them have been answered or are addressed at some point in this session, and just want to reassure everybody on that if you registered, when you registered for this session, you gave us your email address, and you will receive the recording of this session back to your email address after the event is over. And so you will have the chance to sort of listen again or hear the information, see the websites and the email addresses on the slides for help desk and for the grants team. Tons of great information. I think that it's very clear that the Department of Education and you all are working very hard to make sure that every eligible provider is able to successfully apply and get these funds. And there will be lots of supports and resources to make that to facilitate that process to the extent possible. So really appreciate how hard you and your teams have worked to pull this together. And I know that there's just a heap of applications coming in. That's very exciting to hear. I'm sure it's hard to keep up with all of the issues that are addressed. Just thinking about the hundreds of questions that have come up on this session where people have very specific situations that they're trying to get answers to their questions. I can imagine how difficult it is to move through and address, but I see the commitment of your team to be able to do that. And I think it should be reassuring for folks that this isn't first come, first serve. The time is not going to run out on you. But I also did hear your caution, Jenna, to make sure and get to working on your application just as soon as you possibly can. There will be another session next week to provide additional information or to try to answer questions to those who weren't able to join today. And we look forward to welcoming perhaps some of the same folks who are on the session today to hear the information again. But please share the information across other providers that you're aware of so that everybody can get access to and benefit from these terrific child care stabilization funds. Any final comments, Jenna or Becca?
I'll just say, thank you again for the opportunity to speak with everyone today. We really are, so excited to be able to get these resources out to you all and know how important they are to you. And so, we are working quickly and diligently to make that happen, and are grateful for your engagement and patience while we make that happen.
Absolutely. And just want to echo that. And again, encouraging folks to get on there, right, to try early so you can help us understand if there's any way that we can better support you. And if the email address works all hours of the day and night. And so again, if you hit an obstacle as it relates to the system or the help desk, we created the email address to make sure that we can help every last person. So we really encourage everybody's flexibility and patience. We will get to every last email, handle every last phone call and question and query. And we're thinking of this, it's probably appropriate, right? November is the month of marathons. We're thinking of this as a marathon, not a sprint. And so we're focused on getting everybody to the finish line by November 30th, and really appreciate everybody's collaboration and partnership in that.
Excellent. Lots of appreciation coming right back to you all in the question box. So thanks to both of you. Get some rest, and we'll look forward to another day of applications. Thanks to everybody for joining today, and we'll look forward to being in touch soon. Thank you.